Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. This is Abhay Mahmood, your course instructor, and welcome back to lecture number 4. Today we are going to start with the origins of language. We are going to look at that how language was originated. Were there any theories that were given regarding the origins of language? Or if yes, if there some theories were given, what were those theories? We are not only going to trace the theories, but also we are going to look at some chronological development of the origins of language. Let's start today. First, by looking at the origins, you see that there are about 5,000 languages that are spoken in the world today, and a third of them, as it is shown here, are spoken in Africa. When we think about that, there are so many languages that are spoken today. We are really amazed. We are stuck at one point that where have these languages come from? Are there so much speakers as well? And then we also think that what are some things that link all the languages? Is there anything? Is there any origin? Can we know about that how these languages started? Actually, there are some speculations about the origins of language that we need to keep in mind. There were certain thoughts, there were certain controversies regarding the origins. For example, the first question was, what is the world's oldest spoken language? This was a question that has disturbed the people for a long period of time. People have been thinking that is there any oldest spoken language in the world? And if there is any, when did it start? People have been worrying, there were controversies, the researches have been carried out, there was a speculation about this origin. Then we come to some next question, and that is, have all the languages developed from a single source? Yes, this was another question that has disturbed the people, that have kept the people thinking about the origin, that was there any single source, or the things or the languages have been developed out of multiple sources. So the next question or the next speculation about the origin of language is that what was the language spoken in the Garden of Eden? Garden of Eden, it's a reference to the ages back, to the start of human history, to the start of the world. The Garden of Eden, it refers to the paradise, when Adam was there in the paradise, and Adam and Eve used to live there in the Garden of Eden. So it refers back to the long time back. Now the question is, was there any language that was spoken? These are a few things to think over, to ponder over, and you know, all these discussions, all these debates dates back 3,000 years, and the request remains fruitless. Oh, the thing is that although there were many efforts were put to analyze, to see, to find out that what were the languages, what was the oldest language of the world, or how did they originate? People have been trying to look at it in different ages, in different historical eras, but the problem is that all these things have resulted fruitless. They have not reached to some conclusions up till now. Actually, let's start that how people started working on it, how people started founding about the origins of language. The first thing that was done was that of early experiments. Some early experiments were done in the very centuries ago. For example, there's an Egyptian king, and the name of that king was Psamtik I. He actually reigned in 7th century BC, and what he tried to discover which of all the peoples of the world was the most ancient. He was interested in the origin of the language. He was interested in the origin of the language regarding the speakers. He actually tried to identify the oldest speakers of the world. And how did he do it? He thought that the oldest language would be the evidence of the oldest race. Yes, this was one thing that was in his mind, and he wanted to discover it. He wanted to look at the the deepness, at the breadth of the language. He wanted to trace its origin, and he wanted to see that what was the oldest language that existed. He actually, the main point of focus in him was the oldest language would be the evidence of the oldest race. That's why he wanted to analyze the oldest language of the world. Now what happened? He carried out one experiment. Although it was long ago in the history, what he did, he gave 2 newborn babies of ordinary man to a shepherd to nurture among his flocks. Flocks, is a collection of lots of animals. A shepherd is a person who takes good care of his animals. So Psamtik, who was the king of Egypt, he gave the 2 newborn babies to one of the shepherd. He asked him that to take care to brought up those 2 babies. He charged him that none should utter any speech before them. This was one of the conditions of their brought up, that they would be brought up just among the company of the goats, just among the company of the animals of the flocks. Otherwise they are not going to utter any speech before them. It was a condition that the 2 babies will not listen to any of the speech, and they should live by themselves in solitary habitation. This was another condition. They would be living in a solitary habitation, in a solitary place, in a lonely place, without the company of some other people around them. So perhaps the reason being, he just wanted to trace that is there any language that the newborn babies are going to speak, and if there is any language, what is that language that they would utter first. Yes. And at the due hours the shepherd should bring goats to them and give their fill of milk and perform the other things needful. So this was a criteria, this was a situation that was created for the 2 newborn babies, just to trace the development, just to trace the origin of the language. Now what happened as a result of Psamtik's experiment? The time passed on, and after 2 years the shepherd opened the door, entered in, and saw that both the babies fell down before him and cried because. Yes, the time passed on, they survived because they were being fed, they were living among the company of the other flocks. Now what happened? After 2 years the king entered in. He entered and just looked at the moment he entered into the room, he just opened the door, and he saw that both the babies, they fell down. They cried and they fell down. They asked him of because. He was amazed to listen to this one word. This was a strange word, because. Upon inquiry, now what happened? The shepherd noticed that whenever he used to come and he used to give him their food, they used to utter the same word. It became their habit. And now what happened? Actually, he reported this thing to the king, who have given these 2 twins to the shepherd. Now upon inquiry, Psamtik got to know that Pharygian had used that word for the bread. Yes, while the shepherd reported to the king that the twin babies have started uttering the new word, that is a because, the king became anxious, the king became curious to know that what does this word mean. At his research, then he got to know that this word was used basically by Phrygians, and they used this word for the bread, to refer to the bread. And now he came to know that Phrygian were elder than they. Phrygian was one again, it was, they were the language speakers, and by this research, he just got to know that they were elder than him. So perhaps they thought that this is quite an older language, and it has come from Fergian, the word that was spoken by the twin babies. This was one of the early experiments that was done. Still there's criticism on the Samtik's experiment. The people who came late, they criticized it, and they said that his experiment proved wrong, because philological studies show that Fergian is but one of the several languages which have developed in that period of history. It is about the historical evolution of the language. They said no, this was not the same language that existed at that time, or rather before that time. Rather, it was a language that existed at that same period of time. Now, then why did the twins pronounced Picos? This was a question that came into the mind of the people who were studying it later on, and critics said that this was one of the snatches that Shepard recognized. Perhaps there were so many entrances by the babies, and perhaps this was just one of the utterance that Shepard got, that Shepard heard, paid his attention, and then reported it to the king. This might be one of the instance, and then some other instance can be, some also said that they copied the goats, because as the babies were living in the company of the goats, so they thought perhaps, yes, that this is a copying, they are imitating the sounds that were uttered by the goats, perhaps, or the people living in the company of that goats. Yes. Now the next experiment, the experiments like this continued, and then there were some children of the wild. Actually, for several hundred years, cases have been reported of the children who have been reared in the wild by animals or kept isolated from all the social context. Again, these were some of the efforts that were done by the people to trace the origins of the history. They used to keep the children in the wild. Because why the children? Because these are the newborn babies who start uttering some new language. The language start at the very early age of the childhood. So that's why always the children were taken as a sample of analysis. And the results show that none could speak at all, at most had no comprehension of the speech. Yes, the results show that there were, although people have experimented for a long period of time, they have been keeping the children in the company of the animals, and they have been bringing them up in the company of the animals. But as a result, as there was no social context, as there was no social interaction of the children with the people, so they learned no language, and the result showed that none could speak at all, and most had no comprehension of speech. They could not even understand what the speech is about. Yes, results of experiments. Most attempts to teach them to speak failed. Definitely there were so many experiments were done, and attempts to teach them to speak failed. The cases of 1694, 1731 and 1767 are said to have learned some speech, and the cases of 1767 have learned both Slovak and German. Actually, the things continued. People keep trying, people keep experimenting. They started putting their children into the wild, in the company of the animals. Now, what happened? The cases that were reported in 1694 and 1731, it was reported that perhaps they learned a bit of speech. Before this, no cases were reported of the speech acquisition, of the language acquisition. But in 1767, they said there were the two human languages that they learned. Although they were living in the company of the animals, yet they started learning this language. This is very, very strange. Then in 1707, there was a case that was reported, and in 19th century child are both said to have learned some sign languages as well. Sign languages, this is a little bit of development that is going on with the passage of time. Firstly, they learned nothing. no speech was acquired, no signals were used. But now, with the passage of time, firstly they started learning a little bit of comprehension of the speech, and now what happened, they have also acquired some sign language. Yes, the scientific approaches. A considerable effort has been put to identify the scientific traces in the in order to trace the origins of language. So now what happened, these were the following are the results. There were different branches of science that were dealing with the traces of the origins of language. For example, glossogenetics is one of the branches of science that has been dealing with the study of the origins of language. For example, glossogenetics is a study of the formation and the development of human language. This was a field that was working in this field, and they were trying to find out and trace the origins of language. They were trying to get the idea that from where the language began. And then there were some other sciences that are involved in this area. Are the first one is anthropology. Anthropology is once again the scientific study. Anthropology is a scientific study of the people who live in some, it's a socio-cultural study of the people, of the language. It's about the interaction of the language and the people, where the people are living. So this was another field of study that was denoted to this work. And then another one was psychology. Psychology is the scientific study of the psychological processes of the brain and the things that are involved in it. So this was another field of science that was given, that has been giving its due emphasis on tracing the origin of language. Then comes another branch, that is semiotics. Semiotics is the scientific study of signs and symbols. You know that language is a good combination of not only of sounds, of words, but also of symbols. So the complete field that is known as a scientific study of signs and symbol, that is known as semiotics, was also paying concentration, was also paying its due emphasis on the tracing of the origins of language. The next branch of scientific science that was dealing with this thing was neurology. Neurology is a scientific study of neuroses, of your neurons, of your complicated human brain. It is concerned with the complicated processes of the brain. So the processes of the brain were traced, perhaps to see that how they play their part in the speech, in the language, and this was again giving its emphasis in the tracing of the origins of language. The next was primatology. Primatology is a study of some olden subjects, some old areas of study. So it was also giving time to the study of and the traces of origins of language. And then comes linguistics. Linguistics is a scientific study of language. Language was studied, actually the origin of language was also studied under this subject. Linguistics is a broader term. Linguistics has got many sub-branches, and most of the sub-branches of linguistics are individually concerned with the origins of language. Let's see if there are some evidences from paleontology as well. Yes, efforts have been put together to deduce the origins of language from the fossil records of early human beings, but the results are not conclusive. Again, some efforts were done. People have tried to look at the fossils that were found of the earlier men, of the earlier human beings. The fossils are the bones and the skulls that they found, and they have been studying it in detail just to see whether their brain was complicated enough, whether the brain has certain parts that are concerned with the speech, with which the human beings can speak up which the human beings can generate sentences. So they have been collecting these bones, they have been collecting skulls, they have been looking at the tissues just to identify and just to look the complication of the human brain that existed at the earlier times. And one aspect was to see that whether the primitive men have the capacities to speak. Yes, it is said perhaps it is a wrong view of the people that with the modern times people are more conscious and people are getting to know about most of the things. Just perhaps it is a very technological era, people have turned into an advanced technology, but the thing is that it does not mean that the primitive people don't have the same things. Perhaps they would be having, and we don't have sufficient evidences to prove that the things existed earlier as well. Now let's pay our focus to some theories of human language. These are a few of the theories. Actually, these were given by the Danish linguist Otto Jespersen. Otto Jespersen is a very famous linguist, early linguist of 1860 to 1943, and he has basically given 5 theories. When initially he gave these theories, these were the 4 theories, but later on, because of his personal interest, he added another one and it made 5 theories. Up till now we have not been able to trace perhaps the origins. We have tried to look at different approaches, we have tried to look at different eras to see that whether there was some development that was made in those eras. We have tried to look at different approaches perhaps that would have contributed towards the development of the origin of language. But the thing is that up till now we have not been able to reach to a conclusive point. We cannot conclude, yes, the things really existed. Things were there and perhaps they have not been researched. We are still speculating on the same questions, that how many languages were there, how many speakers were there, what was the oldest language of the world, and who were the oldest people of the world, what was the oldest nation of the world, and was there any language that they spoke, and if there was any language, so what was that language? Still we are pondering over it. Perhaps the upcoming generations would be able to answer these questions. Now let's move on to the theories of language. Although our speculations are there, our thoughts are there, still let's move on to the theories of human language that were given by Otto Jespersen. Yes, let me tell you one thing about these theories, that these theories have got very interesting names. You'll really feel glad when you would try to pronounce these words. The first one is the bow wow theory. It's bow wow. Bow wow theory, according to this theory, speech arose through people imitating the sounds of the environment. Imitating the sounds of environment, especially animal calls. So the first important point is that it's that of imitation. It is paying its due emphasis on the imitation that people have been, what the people have been doing, people have been tracing the things, people have been imitating the things, people have been copying it. Yes, this is a first important concept in the bow wow theory. Imitation. Most of the time this word is used with reference to the origins of language, to copy. We say that language is an imitation. It's a copy. We are copying the things, we are imitating the things. The things, it means that there is something that already exists, then we are copying it. Or what is this? What is the thing that we are copying? We are imitating. Speech arose through the people imitating the sounds. It means that there were some sounds that already existed, And by the way, look at the definition of the sounds that he has, that Otto Jespersen has given. He says that this is imitating the sounds of the environment, and especially animal calls. Yes, this is one important thing. Imitating the sounds of environment. Perhaps while there were some sounds that were used to call the animals, and those sounds were being imitated by the people who were living at that time, and they said, yes, that was the origin of the language. This is the way the language started. They started firstly hearing the sounds of the calls, and then they start imitating it, they started pronouncing it, and then they pronounced it. So the language started out of the imitation of the environment, and within environment, when it was perhaps the savage civilization, it refers back to the very, very olden times when there were just animal calls, and perhaps it arose out of that. The main evidence was the use of onomatopic words. As you say that this is more concerned with the animal calls, so the emphasis on onomatopic words. Onomatopic words are those words, for example, smash, crash, splash, that have some natural sounds. Onomatopic words, we can define it this way, that onomatopic words is copying some natural sounds. Copying natural sounds, where you are trying to copy, imitate. It's about copying, it's about imitation. There were some natural sounds, there were some natural things, so they said that the language started from there. This is the origin. And there are certain, I have given the example of onomatopic sounds. These are smash, crash, splash, etc. Let's see, there was a criticism as well on this theory. This did not work. They say, let's look at the criticism first, then we'll discuss it. But as few of them exist in a language, and as languages vary so much in the way they represent natural sounds, the theory has little to support. Yes, this is a criticism, that every language is not full of onomatopic sounds. There are so many things. Language is a very, very complex phenomena. Language is not simple monolith phenomena. It is a combination of so many things. It is very much complicated. It has a complicated structure, form, function. Now, what happened? That they say, as languages vary so much in the way they represent natural sounds, so the theory has little to support. Onomatopic sounds are just one part of the overall language. It's just the one component of the language. It's not a lot. Fine. So what happens? We cannot apply just one little unit of the language to say that all of the language started just by imitating the sounds of the animals. Perhaps this was the reason that this theory was rejected and this was criticized. The second is the poo-poo theory. Speech arose through people making instinctive sounds caused by pain, anger, or emotions. So, the important words in this are instinctive sounds, sounds, for example, by the pain, anger, and emotions. The emphasis in the language is on instinctive sounds. The first was imitation. It was, let's look, it was imitation. That was imitation of the sounds, but of animal calls, of onomatopic sounds. That was the first theory, the Bauer theory about onomatopic sounds. Whereas the second is about instinctive sounds, the sounds that come from within, that exist within oneself. and that comes from something internal. For example, the sounds that are caused by pain, caused by anger and other emotions. So now it was a slight transition from those onomatopic sounds to the intrinsic human feelings, because that was about the environment. Perhaps the first theory, the Baobab theory, was about the sound, about, although one thing is that is general, that is common, is the imitation. We are copying what? We are copying the speech sounds in the first theory as well, in the second theory as well. But in the first theory we are copying the speech sounds of onomatopic, we are just copying the onomatopic sounds of animal calls. But it is now moving, it's a bit we can say it's a bit developed one, and we say that we are copying our human emotions, human life. Pain is one of the emotion, anger is one of the emotions, so it's more about the emotions. And the best example is the interjections are the best examples. Yes, interjections, for example, the words like oh, the words like wow. Again, if you are not sure about something, you would say these are certain words. If you are angry about certain words, you would say ugh, oof, that you are not, you are angry, you don't want to continue with somebody. And yes, the words like also, if somebody wants something, hurrah, perhaps it shows some happiness. These are some interjections. These are the words that would show your emotions both of positivity as well as of negativity. But once again, there was some criticism on this theory as well. But as no language contained many of these, and in any case the clicks, intakes of breath and other noises which are used in this way bear a little relationship to the vowels and consonants found in phonology. Yes, exactly. We are talking more about wow. It's like it's a phoneme. Ooh, ah, wow, hurrah. The words like this. This is more concerned with the phonology. We are going beyond the language. We are going beyond the language complexities. We are moving on to the phonology and the phonetics. So the second point in the criticism, the spellings is never a satisfactory guide. Yes, exactly. The spellings can never be a satisfactory guide towards the trace of the origins of language. It is not enough. As I said, as we discussed yesterday in our previous lecture, in lecture number 3, the levels of language, we looked that the language is not simple one thing. It consists of many levels. It starts, although it starts from the sounds, it moves on to the words, it moves on to the sentences, it moves on to grammar, meaning, discourse, pragmatics. There are so many things. So how can we justify that just by the imitation of the sounds, just by the imitation of individual units, we say that this is enough and we have traced the origins of language? How can this be possible? Not the spellings, not the sounds are sufficient to identify the origin of the language. Let's move on to the third theory, that is the ding-dong theory. It sounds very good, the ding-dong theory. Now let's see that what are the important points, what are the important aspects in it. That speech arose because people related to the stimuli in the world around them and spontaneously produced the sounds, oral gestures which were in harmony with the environment. So now let's underline a few of the important aspects. Speech arose because people related to the stimuli. The first important thing is the people related to stimuli. The people who are related to stimuli. Stimuli is where? Stimuli is found in the world. it's in the world where that is around them. And this spontaneously is quite naturally, they are naturally producing the sounds. Sounds, what kind of sounds? The oral gestures were in harmony with the environment. Fine. This theory says that speech arose because speech is moving now away from just the simple imitation of the speech sounds. Although still we are just talking about the sounds, we're not moving on to any other thing, yet it says the speech arose because people related to stimuli in the world around them. We have got, there are so many things. Now it is moving on to the social interaction, the people, the society, the culture that we have got around them. They say that it serves as a stimuli when then we have some responses. The world says us something, the world, there is something going on in the world, and then as a result, as a response, there comes something from the person. Then this is actually a connection between stimuli and response. It's a very famous theory, behavioristic theory of stimulus and response that was given. This is quite a modern theory of psychology that I am just telling you. I'm talking currently about its behavioristic theory. Behavioristic theory. It's about the behavior, and this is a theory that was given by Skinner. Okay, he talked about two things. We say, let me write. The one is stimulus and the other is response. There is a stimuli, it would cause some response, and maybe some response again would lead back to the stimuli. Yes. So what this theory is saying, the speech arose because people related to the stimuli in the world around them. What is a stimuli? Stimuli is related to this is people. This is a world around us. And the reply would be coming from us. This is we. This is the human beings. This is the human beings. This is coming from the society. That something goes on in the world, something goes on in the society, and then as a result, a response comes from the human being. This is how they said that the speech sounds were produced just because as they wanted some response from the human beings, so they started pronouncing a few words, and they said perhaps this was the reason. The interaction of stimuli and response was one of the reasons of the speech arose. Now they said the main evidence or the example, where do we found the example of these things? They say we found universal use of the sounds of words of certain meanings. Yes, universal use of the sounds of words of a certain meaning. Universally, there are so many sounds, and the sounds, although can be, yesterday we studied in a previous lecture that language has duality of patterning. Duality of patterning in the sense there is one part that is phonological part, that is a part of sounds, it is meaningless. But today we are saying that there is a universal use of the sounds of the words of a certain meaning. Yes, this is an evidence, this is an example of this theory that we are discussing about the origin of language, and we are saying that the sounds of the words, every word has a sound. For example, the word like pen, while we talk about the sound, is P-A-N, pen, and the word is pen, P-E-N, pen. The use of the sounds of the words of a certain meanings. It has some certain meanings. Pen we know, pen is something like this, that has a tip to write, that has a body, that may in certain cases have some cap. So we say that this is a pen is something like this. It has a meaning, the sounds, the words, and the meanings. They say this way we can identify the object with the sounds of the word. But there was once again a criticism on this language, on this theory as well, that apart from a cases of the apparent sound symbolism, the theory has nothing to commend it. Although this was one step ahead, this was a thing that contributed towards the development of the origin of language. This was one step ahead, and the step was, before this we were just focusing on the sounds. We were just talking about the imitation. We started with the imitation of the animals, then we moved on to the imitation of, perhaps, let's say, of the human beings, of their emotions. Then we came towards stimulus and response, and there is a criticism, and the people say, apart from the cases of the apparent sound symbolism, apart from apart from the relevance of the sounds with certain things, we don't have anything else from this theory. We don't get it. For example, there are different examples that are given. For example, the word bye-bye and the tata show the lips and tongues respectively waving goodbye. If, let's say, if we are saying bye-bye and tata, I'm saying it, I am using sounds, I am uttering it, I am waving my hand, I'm saying hand through my eyes, I'm speaking through my, these are the symbols. So they say that a more complex system was needed apart from just the definition and explanation of stimulus and response theory. Yes, the next theory and the fourth theory is Yo-Hi-Ho theory. Yo-Hi-Ho, again another interesting name. Yes, speech arose because as people walked together, their physical efforts produced communal rhythmical grunts, which in due course developed into chants and thus language. Yes, a beautiful description of Yo-Hi-Ho theory, and let's see what this theory has got to say to us. Yes, they are saying that the speech arose because as people walked, it's moving away from thus the stimulus and response. It is coming towards a broader community of the people. It's talking about the community, it's talking about a society, it's talking not only about the individual people, it's talking about a gathering, a collectivity of the people. Yes, as people work together, and now this is more about the working of the people together, that how the people work, that as people worked together, their physical efforts produced communal rhythmical grunts. What happened? They're talking about the working conditions of the people. The people started working as the main focus is on, it's actually, let me write it down, that the main focus is on the community of the people. It's about the society, it's about the collectivity. While there is a community, it's not about one thing that is going on. Definitely, the people are working. It's about the people, that how do the people work collectively with each other. Then when people, they say they started working together, they had some physical efforts. Work needs not only the mental efforts but also the physical efforts. Perhaps the overall idea of the theory, it refers more towards the physical effort, not to the mental effort. And this physical effort reminds us, maybe, let's say, of laborers who do some physical work, who are like having some burden with them. They are loading it, they are unloading it. We are talking more about the laborers, about the people who go with the physical work. They say that who put their physical efforts produced communal and rhythmical grunts. Communal, as it was a community, it was more about the people of a community. So they produced what? They produced communal and rhythmical grunts. There were some talks, there were some grunts, there were some words that were exchanged. They produced some specific kinds of sounds. They used some specific kind of vocabulary. These were the things that were used for communication and conversation, which in due course developed into the chants. Moving from the first step that they moved on was that of grunts. They moved from grunts to the chants. From chants, they developed a complete system of language. And we perhaps agree that the language is arising out of community, out of the social work that people are doing. It is not individual. Language never comes individually perhaps. You don't learn the language in isolation. As we see that the early experiments that were done, they were about the children who were put in solitary conditions, solitary habitations. No, the solitary will never give you language. The more you speak, the more you interact, the more you have language, the more you use it. So what happens, this is perhaps you can see that how the grunts and then the chants, they all developed into language, and all these things were produced while there was some physical labor that was going on. The people were working in the form of community. Yes, the evidence, they said, it's been given. There is universal use of the prosodic features, especially of the rhythm, but all the gap between this kind of expression and what we find in a language as a whole is so immense that an explanation for the later would still have to be found. Yes, universal use of the prosodic features are there. Yes, the first example is that of the prosodic features. We are moving from the individual sound units to the prosodic features, that is the intonation, the rise and fall, the pitch, the stress functions of the words that I told you earlier, that these are the paralinguistic features. We are moving away from the individual sounds to the units, especially of rhythm. But all the gap, this kind of expression and what we find in language as a whole is so immense that an explanation of the later would still have to be found. Yes, they say that this is not sufficient, this is not the end. Although they talked about language moving a little more, a little ahead from the concept of the sound, of the community work, of the stimulus and response, still they say that the language has to be found. They have to look that what the language actually is. Then how did it actually started? This was a question that was still there, and that needed the research. Yes, the fifth theory that was initiated, that was intentionally added in the first four theories by Otto Jespersen, just because of his personal likings. This would be perhaps foolish to say right now that this was because of the personal likings, but still he added this, and this, while you would go through it, you would get to know that how different this theory is and how interesting this theory is. Let's look at the name of the theory. It's the La-La theory. It's again very rhythmical, very musical name, the La theory. As if you are going to sing a song. Let's see what this theory is about and what does it say. Jespersen himself felt that if any single factor was going to initiate human language, it would arise from romantic side of life. The sounds associated with the love, play, poetic feelings, perhaps even song. Yes, another aspect, another different dimension to the origin of language, perhaps to some intrinsic needs of human being. Intrinsic, the inner, the natural needs of human being. Let's see what these are. They say this person felt, and this person says that if any single factor was going to initiate human language, it would arise from the romantic side. The emphasis on romantic side, on the romance part of life. The sounds associated, this is again the focus, you may see that it's on the sounds. It is associated, the sounds with sound that associated with the love, with the play, with the poetic feelings, and perhaps even the songs. Yes, this is perhaps a different dimension to the theory of the origin of language. Is what I understand. This is just my personal view. I am not going to pass any judgment. Rather, I'll be showing you the criticism later on. Yet, what I feel is that perhaps this person felt that it must be mentioned, it must be stated in it, because this is an inevitable part of everybody's life. It's not, a human being is not, perhaps is not single, or the human beings, there are some intrinsic things, there are some feelings, there are some emotions that are quite natural, that they have, they're genetically there perhaps. They say that's why he talked about it, he added it in the origin of theory, and this theory says that language initiated from the romantic, from the sounds that were related to the romantic side of a person's life, and these were the sounds of love, these were the sounds of the play, these were the sounds of the poetic feelings, and perhaps the songs. Perhaps when they started listening to these things, the human beings started listening to these things while they perhaps were listening to the songs, or while they used to pronounce a few words, used to come in them, and these words have led them towards the romantic side, and this is how the language, they said, started. Just by the association of the sounds with the romantic side. Yes, the criticism, there's a criticism on it, and the criticism is that there's a gap between the emotional and the rational aspects of the speech expressions would still have to be accounted for. Exactly, a very true thing. There are the two things that are mentioned here. The first is the emotional aspect. The second is the rational aspect. Actually, human beings are a very, very good combination of two things, the heart and the brain. While we talk about the emotional aspect, we say we're talking about heart. While we say that we are talking about rational aspects, we say we are talking about head, or we are talking about brain. Yes. But what does this theory do? This theory just focuses on one single aspect, and that single aspect is the emotional aspect. That side is the side of heart, of the emotions, where the rationalistic part, that perhaps is more, that the practical part of human life is totally ignored. That's why this theory was rejected, and the criticism said that these two things are integrated. Both these things make up human beings, and so they should make up a successful human being, not one thing, rather both the things. We have almost completed all of our lecture today, and let me today give you a summary of what we have discussed. Although there were some difficult words, but I would like to recapitulate what we have done up till today. The first thing, that we started with the map, and the map was about the origins, perhaps, where we were trying to locate that how did the languages started. Actually, we started by posing some of the questions. These are the questions that have not been properly answered up till now. Although we are living in the 21st century, we have come far away. It's a technologically advanced era. We have lived in it, and we have been doing researches, we have been finding up the things, we have gone up to the moon, but still there are so many things that remain undiscovered. And one aspect was that of language, one aspect was that of the origin of language. Yes, the origin of language, there are certain speculations. Speculations means there are certain thoughts about language that we discussed today, that what is the oldest language of the world. Perhaps it is not known. People have tried to give certain theories, but perhaps still it is not known. They have been experimenting on certain things, yet they come to no conclusion, and the theories have proved no fruitful at all. Firstly, we just started discussing the early experiments, and we said that early experiments were done, and one thing that we mentioned in early experiments was that of Samki, who was the king of Egypt. He did an experiment, and we by discussing the experiment, we said that this was criticized later on and it was rejected, but perhaps it was at least about the initiation of the language. We also talked about the children of the wild. Children of the wild, it was a trend perhaps in the early eras, that the children were put into the forest, in the wild, just so that they can develop their language skills. Now what happened, after experimenting a lot of time, there were no experiments that were done, and initially we saw that none of the children could speak even a single language, but later on we saw that a few of the children started speaking a few of the languages. Their languages were not complete in itself, yet they had a little sense of the languages. Yes, then we moved on to discussing the scientific approaches. The scientific approaches were about different approaches, different fields of studies that are emphasizing, that are trying to study, that are trying to trace the origins of language. And these scientific approaches include different things. For example, we have studied today that there is one field that is glossogenetics is there, semiotics is there, linguistics is there, then paleontology is there, primatology is there. There are different fields. These are so different varied fields of science, neurology and psychology, another dimension. They are trying to study the primitive, they are trying to find out that how did language originated, how did the language start basically, but still perhaps they have not come up to a specific conclusion. Yes, then after discussing scientific approaches, we have discussed the theories of origin. Theories of origin, there were actually 5 theories. The 5 theories were given by Otto Jespersen. I'm just revising the name of the theories. The first name of the theory was the bow wow theory, the bow wow theory, and the second theory was the poo poo theory. The bow wow and the poo poo, both of these theories was concerned with the imitation of the speech sounds. The first theory discussed the onomatopic sounds, and the second theory discussed the imitation of instinctive sounds that come out of pain and some emotion. Then we moved on to discussing the third theory, and the third theory was that of ding dong theory, and we say it was a theory that paid due emphasis on the stimulus and response. They say that the stimulus is the environment where there are people around, and there were some speech sounds that were copied out of this interaction between stimulus and response. Then we moved on to the fourth theory, and the name of the theory was the Zhou-He-Ho theory, and the Zhou-He-Ho theory was again a bit developed one, and it talked about the community war. It talked about the people who were there, who were working in the form of community, and they said that these actually, while the people were working, they had some grunts that were exchanged. Then these grunts moved on to chants, and then these chants made up the language. So this is how the language originated, out of the work, the community work that was being done collectively among the people. Yes, the next theory, the Lala theory, and the last theory that was discussed by us was about the romantic side. The romantic side was actually is a side that was intentionally added into the theories of origin by Otto Jespersen, and he said this thing that the romantic side is a thing that perhaps started the sounds that are used for the expression of love, for poetic feelings, were the sounds that originated perhaps the language. They made up then later on the complex language. But actually this is not the thing. Again, the criticism on this theory was that this just looks at one side of the aspect, that is the emotional side. It totally ignores the rationalistic side of the human nature. So although with this we have ended up our lecture, although these were the five theories, although did not contributed a lot towards the origin of the language, and most of the theories were more about imitation of the sounds, a little were more about the community, about the stimulus response. Yet I would say that at least they have made some contribution. At least they have shown some light. They have given us some food for thought. Because before this we hadn't had any idea that how did the languages started and what were the different theories. So these theories, we can say it's actually a kind of lighthouse. It is showing us a light. It's a torch that has led us towards something broader, and hopefully that you would have understand the concepts today. And with this today I will end, and take good care of yourself, and fi amanillah. We'll see you in the next lecture. Okay, Allah Hafiz.